regulation of all drugs. And more recently, we have been working to do meaning making about how drugs are being used as an excuse to kill people in the Caribbean and Pacific Oceans, right? The ways that it's being used for the U.S. to push their foreign policy aggression, and how it's always been a political project of racism and colonialism. And so the work that we do at Drug Policy Alliance is really trying to figure out how can we create a different container for us to have conversations about complex human behavior. So I am based in New York. I live in Harlem. And I actually went to this school, and I never told people that. So I say it for free now. Y'all not gonna get this free advertising. So I was asked to be the moderator on this great panel, and honestly plenary, with exceptional speakers. We had a prep call, and I'm really excited. So my role is just to be a steward, for them to have as much time as possible to talk. I will be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of audience Q&A. Only because people don't always follow the rule of the mic, right? People testify instead of questions. However, it's Sunday, you know? and I'm feeling like spring is coming. So this is a spirit of renewal, okay? And so therefore, I'm gonna go with the flow and the energy of the room to see if we're gonna get there, right? But I wanna set expectations, all right? That I might just let them go off, because if they going and the riz is risen, as the kids say, and it's saucy, I like that, okay? So nothing sucks more to me is like when the sauce hits and then all of a sudden the Q&A runs off the rails. You know what I'm saying? So here, I'm setting the expectation for you. If you touch that mic, I will watch you, because I do come to this conference often. So if you come back, I will know that you a vibe killer. Got it? Vibe killer. So cool. All right. So I'm just gonna ask everyone, because I'm gonna model after what I think he does, but I'm gonna ask everyone to take a deep breath in. Hold it. Let it out. Let's do it one more time. Mm-hmm. Hold it. Feel where it stays. Push it out. All right. Thank you. This plenary is called Rooted in Mind. Don't worry, come on in. There's people in the front. There's space. Right on time. Great colors. Love that. This conversation is called Rooted in Mind, Body, and Spirit, Reclaiming Traditions of Healing and Care. And you'll see that in the description, it really talks about how not only does our movement require justice and safety, but it requires care, ourselves and one another. People often say that, but there's a lot in those words, and there's a lot that happens and a lot that doesn't happen. And so this conversation is about us actually trying to have a more rooted conversation about what is and what isn't. So I'm just gonna give this opening statement, because one of the things that we talked about on our prep call was this conversation about what we say our movement is grounded in, right? Because I think for us to really figure out what we're rooted in, we got to talk about where we're putting the roots. Okay. So oftentimes in the justice space, and I'm talking about the criminal legal justice space, we talk about redemption. We talk about fairness. We talk about people, the people that have the solutions were the ones that had the most experience with it, right? And we talk about community building. We talk about more recently, we've been talking about healing. We say that, we take care of, for us, by us, right? And I think oftentimes we feel like we are powered by this idea that we know what justice looks like, right? We're powered by the idea that, yes, harm happens, but we can deal with harm. We can deal with trauma. We all are moving vessels with trauma, and we know how to deal it. And our trauma is what makes us expert, and is the reason why we should lead, right? And I think the other thing is, like, we also move with a great deal of urgency, because we know so much of the fabric of our communities is deteriorating based on the way that we deal with harm and conflict. That's what we say we know. That's what we say we do. Can you give me a snap if that aligns with what you think our movement space is, right? And what we say here, and what was talked about over the last 3 days, right? Justice, healing, repair, trauma, right? But how many people in here are either a part of a collective or an organization? I think what I described is our best versions of ourselves. Am I not? I think there's a gap between what we say we do versus what we do. And so here, for the people that know me, I love a mess, okay? So I want to start there. What do you think about what I say, and like, what have you experienced? What do you think, what do you actually think we're grounded in? Even if we say something, what is the reality of what undergirds so much of the work that we're doing, or the spaces that we hold, or the practices that we imbue on each other?
I'll go first.
Sorry.
Oh.
Y'all got to tell people who you are before you talk.
Thank you, Cassandra, and thank you to all the Beyond the Bars conference planners for putting together this wonderful event. Good morning. My name is Ifetayo Harvey. I am the founder of the People of Color Psychedelic Collective. I'm based in New York City, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. And Cassandra, I feel like you're describing an incongruence, right, between our stated values and our praxis. And I think this is something that a lot of individuals and organizations struggle with. Being that we're in like the age of information, we're being thrown all these, or we're discovering a lot of new language to describe our experiences. But when it comes to actually practicing our values, we don't always align on what that looks like, right? And I think that's why communication is so important. Because I could say like, oh yeah, I love fruits. And you could say you love fruits too, but we could be talking about two totally different things. And this is why we have to like really explain what we mean when we say things, because people can take language at face value. And then to your other question about what actually undergirds our movement, I kind of was like, oh, well, what does? And what came to mind was Mariam Kaba's quote, "Hope is a discipline." And I feel like a lot of us were struggling to feel grounded in these values, but we all have hope kind of guiding us because we're hoping for something better, but we kind of lack the structure, organization, or grounding to really move beyond just hope.
I'll go next. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Koji Wallin-Sato, and I just want to say thank you for all being here, and very humbled to be with these colleagues up here, new friends. This is my 6th time at Beyond the Bars, and never thought I'd be up in this, like on this side, so it's just, I'm very humbled. I'm the co-facilitator for a national inter-Sangha network called Zen in Prisons that was actually organized at this very conference, so I love this conference with my friend Yaku-san over here. many years ago, and I'm also the former director of Project Rebound at Cal Poly Humboldt and the former director of the prison education program at Cal State Long Beach. So kind of within many hats of going inside and either incorporating education or spiritual Buddhist practices. And I kind of see them all rooted in the same of providing services for our folks inside. I think I want to just experience, like, kind of piggyback off this, what we're rooted in is, and what I see is kind of this separation between the self and community. And there's a lot of talk about self-care, like what are you doing for self-care? And there's not as much emphasis on the community care being the same as self-care, right? And so, like, my community, like, I'm not okay unless my community's okay. And my community's not okay unless I'm okay. And so there has to be, you know, I think with this age of information, consumerism, global capitalism, of being like, we're like distracted by self-care, right? There's an app for your self-care. Here's an app. So you're like isolated, right? And your self-care is put the phone away and then talk to your neighbor and be like, hey, how are you doing? How are we doing? And I think emphasizing that connection is the root.
It's good to be here. My name's Elias Dakwar. I am a psychiatrist. I was at Columbia until recently. The bars kept me away. We see it every door now and checkpoints. I specialized in addiction. I focused on how we might restore our relationship with substances so that we have a life more congruent with what our values might be. I'm not in a position to tell people what their values are, but we create space for discovering that together. I've incorporated substances that have been considered problematic into my practice into my research with these challenges, including what are called psychedelics, but also other substances that may have negative stigma, including opioids. So, glad to be here, and I'm reflecting on your question and also the very insightful remarks from my colleagues. And I think one of the challenges when we're talking about community is community for whom? And a lot of us have felt the exclusions that come with a very rigid and othering type of community. And I think one of the core spirits that I recognize here is expanding our notion of community, moving away from the siloed sense of community that afflicts our society and the polarizations, also the subordinations and the supremacies, and recognizing the humanity, first of all, that we need to cultivate in ourselves with people who are willing to recognize it. And then extending hands as best we can to those who have dehumanized and are dehumanizing themselves in turn. That can be the more challenging aspect, especially because they often hold the levers of power. So I'm very curious and excited about what the conversation today will bring, and very happy to be here.
What's up, family? I am super juiced and also recognizing my body nervous than a motherfucker right now. It's like we do a centering practice and I'm centering over and over and it's not working. I'm recognizing I just got to be with it. Brandon Sturdivant, he, him pronouns, one of the co-founders and co-directors of the Mass Liberation Network. we do some dope shit in the world. We help people transform systems, particularly the criminal legal system, by bringing together embodiment and organizing. When we talk about embodiment, what are we saying? I think we had an example from Kassandra and your name, sister? Ife. Of disembodiment, right? Like I am split between what I think and what I feel, how I'm able to act in the world, but versus what I want to do. Our work in embodiment is like I can align myself, and naturally, as indigenous folks on this planet, we are aligned around our thinking, our actions, our capacity to feel sensations, our range of emotions, our quality relationships. They can line up, and then we can put our force behind them to act in the world. Right now, we live in a place in a world. Talk about the isms: patriarchy, racial capitalism, sexism, They split us, right? If I actually am able to feel my body consistently and feel what's happening inside of me, I would blow all this shit up. I would right now. But those same systems have taught us to split ourselves long enough to find other targets, each other. Our work in Mass Lib is like come into right relationship with ourselves, come into right relationship with each other, come in right relationship with the planet. I think one of the core challenges we had to what you were saying is we don't have a set of values. I love us. We do not have a collective set of values. Not all of us are abolitionists in here. Not all of us want to stand up and say patriarchy is a problem. We need to do something about it. And that's some of the core foundational stuff to get on the same page to say, here are our collective values. And then from that place, we can be held accountable to them. You can't hold me accountable to some shit I don't agree to, right? And I think it's not a person's fault. That's the other part about it, right? Like, because when we get in our spaces, we look like who to blame. It's just it is a structural issue, but we have to have, in conversations like these, start the creative solutions to be on one accord, to be on one page. It's taken, and I'll finish here. It's taken a long ass time for our collective to be clear about like what's important to us, and we've been rocking for like 8 years. So I want to hold the disembodiment, I say, with lightness, right? Because it's not coming from us, but it is our job, our responsibility from the inside out to come back to our own safety, belonging, and dignity.
See why I said the vibes are very important to keep? I think this point that you make, Brandon, is why sometimes it can be really hard when we're in collective space with each other and we have disagreement. Right? And often the things that happen in disagreement mirror the things that we drive campaigns around. The alienation, the stigma, right? People are banished from our spaces because they do hurtful things or harmful things, and we haven't created the alternative in our space to actually hold that hurt, to hold that harm. And to your point, there's so many people that feel so strongly about holding a person or an entity accountable. But Miriam Kaba says, like, you can't hold somebody else accountable. That person has to hold themselves accountable. But if we don't have a shared understanding about what we are accountable to, it creates the conditions for disconnection or continued disconnection. And we know that disconnection can feel really violating. It doesn't just hurt our feelings. It violates us, right? There's a sense of intimacy that gets broken because the work that we do is so deeply rooted. We know that it is rooted in our survival and our ability to build and bring forward a new world. So when someone steps out or creates harm, we don't have the practice of taking in that shock, right? And the world that we're going towards, or the world I'm going towards, is not a world where harm doesn't exist, right? It's a world where the elasticity can take the shock of the harm, right? And so I think part of the conversation when we're talking about rooted, we didn't want to start off with the assumption that we are all rooted in the same place, right? So just came down the line is that we're all in different places, but we're trying to go in the same direction.
Sure.
And some of us, maybe, I'm a New Yorker, some of us may be going to 242nd, but some of us may be going to 138th, right? That's fine. My biggest thing is, you don't gotta be an abolitionist like me, but you cannot pull the emergency brake when you get off the train. Because we was on the train together. We was making it move. All right? And you cool on 138, that's great. But I'm going to 241st. So you can't stop my motion.
Love it.
You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes you on the train, and then you acting up on the train. And now we stuck in the tunnel, right? And a lot of our movement is stuck in the tunnel. And sometimes the stuckness be a long time. It don't be like, oh, there's train traffic ahead. It's like, there's no more power in here. Right? Because the motion is in the train. Because now you got the guy screaming out Bible verses. You got the person selling candy. You got the kids trying to do the flips on the thing. And you literally just sitting there trying to go somewhere. Right? A mess, I know. But that's the thing that when we're trying to figure out community care, to what Tony's talking about, community is inconvenient sometimes. So when you're trying to build a value of care, and it's not everybody in your community do you like, how are we gonna get to the healing if I can't stand that man? Right? And recognizing that the healing is not conditional on you liking somebody.
Right.
Ooh. And I speak this because I'm on a co-op board in Harlem. And baby, the way these cooperative economics are, I lived in a dorm that was called Ujima. Okay, so I'm clear. But I can't stand some of the people I have to move on the train with. So here we are, Tony and Brandon. This is a conversation about care and well-being. I want us to continue to be super clear about what are you seeing being sold to us about care and well-being in our spaces? How do you see that? And what would you offer instead?
Something that you had said about it's got this like separation reminded me of a little story. So my mom is from Okinawa, my family's from Okinawa, and my father's from here. We have like a great relationship, basically negating, right, liberal colorblindness, right? And so also he's formerly incarcerated as well, et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of years ago, he committed suicide. And my younger years also failed suicide attempts, incarceration, heroin addiction, right? And I thought we were separate, right? Like I didn't see and I don't use this lightly, but I hated this person. Created a lot of harm for me, my mom, my family. And when he committed suicide, we weren't talking. I was in Japan, and I was staying at a couple of temples, and I just knew something was up. And then I returned back to the States and found out that he had committed suicide. But, in that moment, I saw that after my incarceration, like, I leaned into my vulnerabilities, and I faced a lot of, like, those dark places. And I was uplifted and supported by communities, and sadly, he never did. And I think about that a lot because I was at that place. A lot of us are at that place, and it just, that opportunity doesn't happen yet. And then something happens like that, passing away. But in the moment, I saw myself like, oh, we're the same person, right? And what that allowed me to also see myself in other people who I disagree with, and not even within movements, but like people who are not in our movements, right? And how do I hold space for that? Because I think that's maybe more important, because that's a little bit trickier. That's more challenging. I heard once from an organizer when I was in Florida of like, we hold a space with a door that swings both ways, right? Anyone can come in. And so, and I think that's scary for a lot of us, right? Because it's just really challenging. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what came up for me of that, seeing myself and others.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. When I think about our spaces right now and we think about care, a lot comes to mind, particularly around like escapism, right? Stuff having to be easy and not ease. Like we all deserve ease, but not everything's gonna be easy. There's a lot of this should be easy. It should be comfortable, particularly physically comfortable, but intellectually comfortable, emotionally comfortable. You know, I was when we were on a prep call, I said, man, I got my nails done with my daughter the other day. I deeply enjoyed that. Right, that's a dope experience, and I think we should all take care of ourselves in some ways, and that's also for me not what care is about. Spaces of care should invite us into what I said earlier, deeper relationship with ourselves, deeper relationship with each other, and it should put us on a trajectory to want to change the planet, change the world, change conditions. Like that to me, those are situations of care. I grew up in a home. I'm gonna just keep it a buck. I grew up in a dope house, and it was a very interesting experience because while that was happening at the same time, everybody in my family went to prison, so people would just come home, and So first of all, we rock with formerly incarcerated folks because we believe these are the minds, the brains, the folks with the set of experience that will transform the entire world. Why is that important? Because formerly incarcerated folks, impacted folks, I think most of the folks in this room get this, are at the margins of all the shit. The healthcare system, the education system, the actual criminal legal system. You can just add it all up, and we've had to, like, create our own shit out of what they gave us, right? Or what we don't have access to. And so that is a foundational place for us and for me, that we invest in these folks because these are the brains, the minds, the spirits that are going to take us to the next step. That's where we all get free. For me, it comes from living in a house where people had to come home and transform every day. Where Unc came home and he didn't have shit, and 6 months later he was on his feet and he left and he got his own apartment, right? Where Cuz, what love to him was in and out of pimping, and then he figured some shit out and went to another stage in his life where now he's deeply respectful of women and has a family and a daughter who he deeply loves. Like I watched that as a child, and those were communities of care. It wasn't like, the last thing I'll say, because I'll keep talking. The last thing I'll say is communities of care they also teach you how to decide what I need. When you walk through the door, it's not like, Charlene, you need this to be okay. It's actually, I'm gonna give you the space, the time, and some of the examples for you to go from the inside out. This is what I want for me to transform and move to the next being. Help you identify that need and then set you on path to get that need met. Oftentimes, and you can meet it yourself. I'm complete.
Can I add something?
Yes, come on in.
Yeah, so I love that you use the example of getting your nails done with your daughter, because I feel like what you're pointing at is that there's been this conflation of consumerism with care. And I love that you pointed out that care directs us to building deeper relationships. And I think what's being sold to us now is consumerism and the outsourcing of labor, the care labor, right? To people who we don't always see as people or humanize their labor, right? And I relate that to what I see in my work in psychedelics, because psychedelics are being positioned as this magic bullet to heal trauma. And something I've been writing about is this notion of psychedelic capitalism. So being this industry is marketing to people, oh, if you come to our clinic, come to our retreat, you can heal, right? And I'm not denying anyone's experience of, if you've done that and you found healing, that's totally valid. But what I'm afraid of is that we are starting to see healing as this individual responsibility and not a collective movement. And what we're really lacking is a care infrastructure, meaning policies, supports, systems that actually create mechanisms for care. And I think something that's overlooked within that are the when you're in community and in care with other people, there's also like accountability built into that, right? So there's also been a lot of research on psychedelics, but the for communities of color, we are really left out of that. There's a Black psychiatrist from Yale, Dr. Marcus Hughes. He did a research paper looking at all the psychedelic clinical trials that have happened since 2017, and they're still 85% white in terms of their participants. And then a colleague of mine, Dr. Sean Vigna, out of Texas, he's written a couple papers on how Black people, when we participate in psychedelic therapy, we don't benefit because we're still going back to the environments that have traumatized us. So this is something that I bring in a lot of psychedelic spaces. I know you guys already know this, but a lot of people in the psychedelic world want to bypass the structural change that we need to make in order for medicines or psychedelic experiences to be actually positively impactful for people of color. And you can't have one without the other, really.
This train is choo-choo. All right.
Could I jump
yeah.
in?
Yeah, do your
Something
thing.
to piggyback off Brandon. I think what we have to really be worried about, what I've seen is like the state co-opting what we build. And this happens, right, with prior to the New Deal, like who created the New Deal, but like the Communist Party and anarchists, and then that got co-opted. All the programs the Black Panther Party created. But what I see today within, prison organizing is these, and especially like in Washington State, where because of the Black Panther Party that started in Washington State, then became a cultural group, and now every race has a cultural group, and they all work in solidarity, but they work autonomous. Now the state wants to say, you can't meet, we're gonna create our own DEI, right? And so, to be weary of, we create the best things for us, and to be careful of how that gets co-opted by maybe some money coming in or like nonprofit funds or et cetera, right? And so, I feel like that's kind of like on the rise again within the carceral state.
Sure.
I see that so much, and I really appreciate that you talked about the state and co-optation, because I think not everyone here is a part of the nonprofit industrial complex, but a lot of us are part of the nonprofit industrial complex. And I'm just really wary when philanthropy starts talking about self-care and they start packaging it back to us, when the care is we need actually more money to do the things that we need. We need to do less reports for you to give me the $25,000 that you're going to give me, that you're going to ask me, you're going to call me every 6 weeks about, right? That's not their money anyway. They should be taxed. But really hard for me to stay on topic, guys. Ife, you have spoken before about how, and I think this ties into what Tony was talking about, how traditional forms of care have been criminalized or disincentivized from us. And can you talk about that?
Yes. Yes. So something that a lot of people don't know is that a lot of Native American, indigenous practices, cultural practices were straight up banned or criminalized for over 100 years in this country by the federal government. So starting in 1883 all the way to 1978, 1978 is what, like 47 years ago, right? So it's very, very recent. So traditional dances, ceremony, medicine practices were banned, and that was through the 1978 Indian Religious Freedom Act. That is what led to that law ending. But I want us to kind of sit with this for a minute and what it means to have generations of people divorced from their cultural and spiritual practices and being forced to take on the religion of their oppressor, right? Like, there's so many levels to that. And so what we call psychedelics was a part of indigenous people's practices, things like peyote, mescaline, ayahuasca in South America. And so now, speaking of co-opting, psychedelics have been in the mainstream, in the spotlight, because there's the potential to make money off of them, right? It's not about actually. There's a lot of talk in the psychedelics world about reciprocity initiatives for the indigenous groups, and to me, the reciprocity things, it doesn't sit right with me because it implies that we're both reciprocating on equal playing fields. And it also implies that the indigenous population owes the colonizer something when they don't, right? It should really be about reparations. And so just thinking of co-opting, I'm also thinking about how peyote is endangered, and how there's a lot of nonprofits in the psychedelic space who claim to be about, rematriating these medicines, but when you look at their leadership, they're not putting indigenous people in leadership. And so it really falls short, and man, I think it's just weighing on me just thinking about like the psychic trauma of divorcing groups of people from their heritage and what that means, and also how that applies to Black people who, we're stolen people, we're trafficked people, and our cultural practices were also criminalized and taken away from us. And so when you combine that with criminalization of substances for 60 years, those substances were also part of our healing practices, right? Like, a lot of people don't like to say that because there's stigma, but all the way from cannabis to opioids, we created culture as we were resisting and being colonized. So these new ways of being with these substances are also part of our healing practices. And so criminalizing them also makes it harder for us to build community and stay connected.
May I add something?
Yeah.
These are very powerful words. And I'm thinking about the initial ways that colonialism severs people from their homes. I'm a Palestinian, and I grew up in Israel and followed how the rules that govern Palestinian behavior, even within Israel, outlying picking za'atar, which is something, a cultural practice that dates back millennia. Can't pick these plants, and it severs this symbiotic relationship with the earth and with one another. And I'm thinking as well about how repackaging healing practices to serve the interests of the elites divorces those practices not only from the people they came from, but also from other healing potential they might have. And an example of this, I saw a documentary called Century of the Self, and there was this really interesting section where the Black Panthers were having an argument with some psychonaut hippies, and even then in the 60s, psychedelics were seen as this way of transcending the self, of like getting outside of one's egoic suffering, ego dissolution, all of that stuff. The Black Panthers were like, what are you talking about? Like, we need to hold on to what we have. Like, it's being taken from us. We need to heal from that place, not from this like made up suffering that you white folk are dealing with that you need to kind of transcend. Like we need to face these grievances. And there is potential for these practices to heal at that level. But if we're kind of incorporating them into our dominant paradigms and pretending that they don't have this communal, relational, ultimately transformational on a wide level potential, then yeah, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice.
What you named there, Elias, is part of one of my biggest beefs in our justice space and our commitment to the arc of redemption. I'm actually not sure what we're redeeming from. And what the rubric of redemption looks like. And in the space that I am, the community I'm in and the work that I do around criminalized substances, often there are people who have varying relationships to substances. And when people may stop or moderate or get to a place where they're like, I'm not using anymore, they separate from the community that they were in. Now, there may be like all the harms that happen there, but they're not dirty anymore, they're clean. But my people are still over here, right? And so like, why does the healing mean separation? Right? And I think there's all historical kind of stuff, even in like between like, I don't say that my community, the community that I do my work with is the FIPCFM community, even though the people in my community are FIPCFM, because of the historical tension between like the folks that are the junkies versus the right? Like there's a separation, right? But we all have been in this space, and what people think what redemption looks like, right? And what that separation is, and the different reasons why these things show up. And so I really appreciated that point that y'all laid out here. And part of the reason why we're talking about this messy stuff is that goes back to the grounding, like, what are we actually healing from? And you can't build a house on a fucked up foundation. And people always want to rush past that part, right? And then when it shows up, we don't know how to deal with it. We can't take the shock of it because we haven't built the elasticity. Brendan, you've shared about how care practices have often been gatekept. What do we have to dig into there?
I think, yeah, you just, we I feel like me, I think probably Rich, kind of have this ongoing conversation. I think Tracy will probably jump in as well. I hope y'all know each other. If not, y'all should meet. About recovery, and versus, I don't think it's a versus, and the criminalization of drugs. I don't think they have to be at odds, and sometimes it happens that way. So that had me off somewhere, but I'd love to continue that. Yeah. I'll answer that question in this way. Embodiment, transformation, healing to your point, has been deeply co-opted. They take practices, things we've used, things that come from our ancestors, repackage them and like giving them back to us. I rock with a lineage, and Mass Liberty rock with a lineage called somatics, soma, the body in its wholeness. And it is a mix of polarity therapy, Chinese medicine, indigenous healing, and because somebody did some work, don't get it twisted. Richard Strozzi, Stacey Haynes did some damn work to like create and craft a methodology that is packaged and can be delivered and get some sort of results in no matter where you are. Bold has been a part of that lineage as well. And like none of this shit has been invented by these folks, right? Like they're like indigenous practices that come from us. And what I and I think we are, even Voter Justice Project included, are up to is we getting rid of the like, you gotta have a password, you gotta know somebody's baby mama's uncle's cousin, knock 3 times, right? And then you open the door and it's like, we want to get rid of that. Actually, I did this other healing modality where I walked into a room, again, similar process, and I walked in and it was like 20, 30 middle-aged rich white women laying down on beds, and I was like, right? That's how you know you're in the room. When they're there, they got it. Somebody passed the lineage down and they got it. We need to have that shit. And so what I'm about, I think what we're about is, what if we felt embodiment? What if we felt transformation? What if we had access to it like we got access to liquor stores? Like we got access to Christian churches on each corner. Would love to my Christians in the room. What if we had it? What if we had it at that level? And we're starting the process of doing that. Inside of Mass Liberty, we got a practitioner program, 30 strong, of folks who are like, I'm gonna learn the embodiment tools to be able to do it in my community as we organize. So we can lessen the gatekeeping. It ain't my shit. And I, the capitalist inside of me sometimes be like, well, I've studied these practices for so long. Like, nigga, it ain't yours. Give that away. Everybody should have access to it. I'll say this and close out. It's kind of funny, but also we do that in the work in general, where we like own shit that's actually supposed to be just given out to our people for free, if what we're really up to is about collective liberation. I think one of the challenges that we don't talk about often is I don't think all of us in this room think we can win. When you really think you can win, you're willing to do stuff in a different way. You're willing to share stuff in a different way. You're willing to be in relationship with people who you do not fuck with because you know there's something bigger than all of us. But when you think we can't win, but I got to get mine so I'm be financially okay and my organization can get the name in the lights, right? But there's actually nothing we're going to really accomplish. You just move differently. What if we start, to me, part of the process of embodiment, getting with these healing traditions, rocking with care in the way that we're talking about, is about the fact that we believe we can win. And on the other side of that, what the hell are we going to build? Because we can't build from these bodies. We cannot build an abolitionist world. Like our children, our grandchildren will be able to do that if we do the work. But if this shit blew up right now and we tried to do it,
Can't do it.
do we have the minds? Do we have the quality relationships? Do we have the internal fortitude to build something vastly different than it is today? I don't know. I think maybe the 15 and 20-year-olds might be able to. It starts with democratizing. I don't even use that language right now. It starts with just saying anybody, anywhere deserves to have the capacity to transform themselves and society and structures.
And for me, I feel like that is so important because we know that this work, I'm going to say a word that, has all the things, burnout. Burnout. I'm burnt out. This person's burnt out. How do I prevent burnout? All that stuff, for me, is like, we are in a marathon. Like, for real. But we are not, some of us can't even take on the leg that we got. We're stopping in our leg. Or we can't do the transfer well. And like, how are we doing the work that elongates the race to get to the win, right? Because some of us have signed up for a marathon and can't do a 5K. Not do a 5K, but like, what, like the cost, the opportunity cost of like not getting this stuff, of not engaging this stuff, not digging into what Brandon just offered, right? There's a cost to our movement, regardless of what words we say they are, right? Like people have packaged it as burnout, but it's way deeper than that. And the burnout, you're not gonna fix your burnout with a massage or manicure or even 3 months sabbatical. That's actually not a sabbatical. That is what an organization can afford, right? It's like figuring out how we can fit healing in the structures that we have, the structures that we know don't even work. Right? Elias, in your work, you've seen a lot. And one of the things we talked about on the prep call was this idea of care versus cure, which I often feel people interchange the two words as if they are the same thing, especially as we rely on frames of redemption. And so wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
You said something earlier about incarcerated people being at a very privileged place, privileged in the sense of perspective, right? Like that there's a learning that's possible and a heartfulness that can emerge. A patient once told me who'd been incarcerated that in prison, he came to find a place, a home, that was independent of where he was. And he recognized, this is not my home. How do I maintain that sense of home and find a way to reflect it in all of this and in the structures that are imposed on us, the captivities? So when I'm thinking about care, it's working toward that, finding a sense of homecoming with one another, with ourselves, even in the midst of some very challenging situations, and not settling for those situations, not finding ourselves resigned to the status quo, constantly evolving them as best we can together. Now, medicine has a problem with taking something that is a solution to an illness and expanding it beyond what's reasonable or sensible. There are some things that we address in medicine that don't quite fit the model of illness. They're more a function of our sense of home being at odds with what we're faced with. And you said no manicure, no pedicure, no psychotherapy or psychiatry would also, on its own, deal with that. We need a deeper sense of how healing might emerge in the midst of this captivity that we're all in, whether inside or outside. So when I'm faced with someone who's struggling with addiction, for example, the issue here isn't one of a brain disease. It's one of relationship. It's a relationship with community, relationship with the substance, relationship with himself or herself. And that isn't something that we can cure with medicines or therapy, or it's an ongoing process of relationship building, of giving space for true communion to emerge. And with that, relationship with the substance will follow suit. I think everyone we should trust, and hope that there's an indigenous sense of home that we all carry, regardless of where we're from. Offering space for that to emerge is the work of caring.
Yes.
Wow, I just feel so lucky to be up here with y'all. I feel like I'm a sponge, just like absorbing organizing nectar, beautiful healing nectar. When I was, this would be quick, but when I was flying into New York, the meditation hall at the monastery that I'm a part of burned down that night. And 1,000-year-old Buddha statues, people's robes, like everything burned down. No one was hurt. It happened at night. But, the significance of this burning down. And then my teacher, and I'm talking with the community, the Sangha, about this, and everyone's, it's tragedy, heartbroken. But I think it's a good lesson in impermanence and materialism. And the next day, the monks were in the barn sitting and still holding community. And what that shows is, this space that is cultivated as a home is not the actual home. It's not the framework. The community is the home and the framework. And I'll end with this. I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine, Henry Frank, who said, if Creator wanted one single human being to be sufficient, we all wouldn't be here. Right?
Tony, so much of the work you've done is rooted in organizing. When everything teaches us that care is, and as you all have said, is individual or our own responsibility. And in the forward world, where we have excavated all the damaging things, right? Where we have gotten to a place where we are aligned and committed to a certain set of values. That's what we're trying to get to. But in the world that we're in right now, where we are trying to build the forward world, when we are doing world building, what are some principles that you think are really important for us to keep in mind? And I want you to go first, Tony, and then the rest of you should think about the principles that you would offer as well.
I'll be, community is the first. I think it's so individualistic here. We're just so bombarded. And I think that's been kind of a theme up here of, right? I mean, like Fanon says about colonialism is a poison on the mind of everyone. And so we're combating that constantly. And it wants to tell us that we're individual beings, right? But we're not. We're all connected, right? Like the ocean, right? The ocean of consciousness. Each wave is different, but it's all one ocean. Mm-hmm. And we, in our day-to-day, we just see the waves. We don't see the ocean, the bigger picture. And I think that being the forefront that, like I said in the beginning of starting this is the community's not good unless I'm good. I'm not good unless the community's good. And that has to always be at the forefront.
Sure.
And I'll let everyone else speak on that.
Related to that is this idea of moving into a culture of being. Is something that our colleague Yolande Kador told me about years ago when I was planning a launch meeting for a coalition that I was building in the psychedelic field of workers, therapists, and I'm like, I'm going to give them all this information. And she's like, whoa, you need to slow down, with all the information sharing, we need to learn how to actually be with each other. And I think that's something that we're forgetting, right? With all this technology, with social media monopolizing our social relations, we've forgotten how to be around one another, right? And that's why, when you are starting a group or organizing, setting that groundwork of what are your values? How do we want to deal with conflict is so important. So learning how to be and also learning how to create spaces that are trauma informed, because even the healthiest community can be really scary and triggering for people who are dealing with complex trauma. So how do we hold space for that as well?
A couple things. Abundance. There's more than enough. There's more than enough. There's always more than enough. There's always more than enough. Like I literally, like I know the scarcity mindset that I have learned. Everything is practiced, right? Right. Everything can be embodied. It's literally just how many times you practice it, and if you have the space to practice it and let it root. That's something that I deeply live by. Also, respect your practice. As somebody who practices a lot, I can see when somebody else practices, you respect. And then the last two are interconnectedness and interdependence, which aren't the same thing. Like interdependence, like we need each other, and interconnectedness, we are already connected. We are already the ocean and the cup of water at the same time. Those are things that I love to throw in the space and that I try to live by.
I think trust is also very important.
Come on.
And, I say that because, we're all here having been betrayed deeply. And that's a wound that can be very difficult to relinquish. And in some ways, maybe we can transform it into attentiveness, discernment, but not at the exclusion of the relationships we know is possible. We know that certain kind of intimacy can be had, with the right care and relationship. And trust as well that we may sometimes betray our values and learn from that. That we may not always be exactly what we dream of being. And not feeling betrayed by ourselves in that process. Fail again, fail better, as Sam Beckett said. And I would also encourage, ultimately, in the pursuit of a culture of being, of simply existing. When we're in a relationship, we're not crowding our minds with principles and values and ideals. We're in it, and we're letting the love flow.
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that we can have that space of love and learn from that alone. We don't need commandments or guideposts. Trusting that the heart will lead the way.
That it's beautiful, y'all. And Elias, the principle I was gonna offer is that we don't need rules, we need relationships.
That hit.
I think some of the hardest places I've been a part of have been places that required rules for me to enter. But they wanted my whole self. they wanted me to see beyond their limitations. And the nectar that they promised on the other side required me to go through an obstacle course. And I find that this concept of being means that I already have everything that I need to be. And even if my being evolves, it's still indigenous to who I am. It's just me changing relationship to the places that I'm going to. And I think that's the biggest thing that I will offer in this room, in the pursuit of the aspiration of our space, our field, of wanting to be heartfelt, healing, justice-minded, is that we have adopted a lot of rules that have been put upon us for attendance, for acceptance, for people to put us on plenaries, right? And what does it mean for us to drill down to relationship? Relationship doesn't mean harm is not going to happen. What it means is that it's elastic. And it doesn't mean, because I think it's important to name, it can also mean ending of relationships. Ending an individual relationship should not necessarily mean pushing people out of the ability to be a part of a community, even if they're not in yours. And so I think it's critical for us to engage this idea of being that was offered. Engage the idea that community care actually is self-care, because community is self, right? And for us to be mindful of the separations that we're all navigating and figuring out what the process of reunification looks like. And so those are some of the amazing things that I felt was stewarded here with all of you. And I guess I would say that I kind of want to end how we started, with connecting ourselves back to body.
Okay. Yeah.
The breathing is all I got, babe.
Y'all mind practicing with me real quick? Okay, and so we do, in our tradition, our lineage, a thing we call centering, so seated or standing. We can invite folks to center. We center to be open, to be present, to be connected. We center to feel more, not less. We center to have a spot in us that we can come back to. Again, the invitation is that particularly the criminal legal system takes away our safety, right? The things that's supposed to keep us safe actually criminalize us. It takes away our belonging, strips us away from our family, gives our family members numbers, right? Strips away our dignity. We go visit a loved one, what's that like? On the outside, the shame that comes. If you are on the inside, are you a human being anymore to these folks? What we recognize through this practice centering is that I can give all that self back to me. A system doesn't have to do that. And then from that place, right, I can choose what I want to do with my life. Disembodied, I'm not actually making a choice. I'm ran by what we call conditioned tendencies. This has always happened. This is how I respond. When I give me back to me, there's an opportunity to say, oh, this is what I want and how I can go get it. And so I'm going to do standing. And just take a moment, and even if you're sitting, just take a moment and see if you can drop in 10% more to your sensations. What do I mean by that? Can you feel a temperature? Can you feel, if you're seated, the chair under your sit bones, under your butt, under your legs? Can you feel the back of the chair holding you? If you're sitting up, can you invite yourself to sit back and just 10% more get in your body? If you're standing up, can you change your relationship to gravity? So instead of, right, you holding you up, can you recognize that there's a force that's doing the work for you? So all you got to do is like clothes on a hanger, just settle. Let's take a moment and get a little deeper in our body. So clench your hands, your arms, and your chest 4 or 5 seconds as hard as you can. Ready, begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Just notice. All you're doing is noticing. And for folks who are like, I can't be here, I'm popping out, I'm thinking about something else, that's okay. Just notice. Just being aware. Taking a moment and clenching arms, hands, belly, back, and legs. 5 seconds, as hard as you'd like to. Begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let that go. Just be with it. What's here? What's yours? Lastly, we want to add in our breath. For those of us who can, if you can't, that's okay too. Choose not to. We're going to clench and then hold our breaths 5 seconds as hard as we can. Clench your entire body. You can clench your jaw as well. You can clench your eyes. Just be curious. We're holding our breath. Clench your entire body. Ready? Begin. 1, 2. Clench those jaws. 3, 4, 5. And from this place, let's go ahead and center on purpose. Center in length, respecting dignity with belonging, and our depth, our capacity to regenerate safety. And so centering in length from the hips down, see if you can just get heavy. Hips to knees, knees to shins, shins to ankles, to the bottom of your feet, and then root in the ground, like if you're growing roots and grabbing, clinging towards the earth. Just get heavy. And then, vertebrae by vertebrae, see if you can sit up in your full height at the same time. Respecting dignity. This is our length, right? You get to have it all the time. Can't be given, can't be taken away. So feel into that and just stretch and see if you can feel 3% more, reaching for ground and sky at the same time. Now hold this, be with this, respect and dignity, and see if you can center in your width, which is your belonging. So across your shoulders, can you take up some more space? Across your belly, can you take up some more space? Across hips, across knees, across ankles, right? Across your back, you have the capacity to love and be loved, to be in relationship with those around you. Can you feel the person to the left and your right? Still keeping your length. So feeling for width and feeling for length, keeping that dignity, keeping that width, we now go to our depth. And so see if you can feel the back of your shoulders. Yeah, your lower back, glutes, back of the legs. And then see if you can feel the middle of your body, heartbeat. Lungs expanding and contracting. See if you can feel the front of your chest at the same time. Back of the body, history. Lineages before us, movement, family, also our trauma, also the promises we kept to ourselves. Feel that. Also feel this present moment through that heartbeat, through the lungs expanding and contracting. And feel the front of your body, like where are you going? Where are you headed? All at once. What does freedom look like for you going forward? Feel it. And then put those things all together at once, because you're centered in depth now. Place your thumb on the belly button. And from this place, from this level of sensation, see if you can reach for ground and sky at the same time. Reach across your shoulders and across your hips, take up some more space, and then feeling back of the shoulders, heartbeat, front of the chest. And come back home to this spot, or this place, right under your belly button. That's your center. In you as you. Gut, sacral, intuition. And ask yourself, like, what am I a commitment to? What's important to me? Why are you here? I'm a commitment to black love, a love that is consistent, disciplined, and joyful, because I was taught to hate black people growing up in West Oakland. I now get to live my life every day with the commitment that frees black people, because it does not free all people. what's important to you. Let that fall away. And I would invite you to turn to a neighbor and just say, hey man, this is what's important to me. This is why I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes, very good. And I can learn so much.
You're what I would call
Very
what you said about
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like a place to have a lot of conversation.
relationships. First when they came out, and I even know all the sensations start to arise, and I feel like I need to put something on top of it. And I feel well.
Yeah, I love that we incorporated
No.
grounding.
So I was like, yeah, that's so interesting. Like,
I also
different.
a lot of space like it's even like I've done this.
yeah, and like I know
Yeah.
it's just like a yeah.
Hello.
Not a circle. I know it's even though escape it, right?
Just want to say we're done.
Yeah, it's such a small world. Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah, thank you. All right, yeah, I like that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this amazing plenary. Thank you for everyone who is here. Another round of applause for our amazing panelists. You all were incredible, and I hope people talk with them afterwards, but also I hope you make it to the first workshop block at 11:30. We have some incredible workshops planned. You can see in the agenda on the Whova app or go downstairs and scan for the program. We're actually out of printed programs, but you can see all the descriptions there. And then we have a quick lunch at 12:45 that goes to 1:15 because the next workshop block happens at 1:15. So if you want to grab your lunch and then go into the workshop room that you want to be in, that would be great. And then we're going to be back here at 2:45 for a closing circle so we can just have one last moment together before we all leave. So if you have any questions, you can come ask me or go to registration and scan for the full program. Thank you.
Thank you.
About saw you.
Thank you. That was
Picture.
Century of the